There is a rare kind of man. He isn't defined by wealth, reckless abandon, or a manufactured charm. He isn't the polite gentleman who simply opens doors, nor is he the arrogant one with a fast car and a faster tongue. He is different. And if you are about to scroll past this, I urge you to stop, because what I am about to share with you isn't found in dating manuals or on your favorite podcast. And trust me, this isn't the kind of advice your friends are whispering in your ear. But the men who understand this, they occupy a space in her mind, living there rent free. They are the ones she imagines when no one is watching. This is a secret most men will never stumble upon, not because they aren't intelligent, but because they are too busy chasing all the wrong things. You don't need six-pack abs or $1 million smile. You only need one fundamental shift, one truth. And if you stay with me, you will feel it land in your chest. Now, a word of warning. This isn't for everyone. Most will click away. They always do. But if you are the kind of man who senses there is something more than the swipes, the games, and the surface level charm, then this might just awaken something within you. If you are ready, leave a comment below. Just say, I'm in. Let the world know you are not here to play small. You are here to rise. Now, let us begin. Sign 1. The man who doesn't flinch. She has met charming men, wealthy men, men who have complimented her every move. And yet, the one she cannot forget is the one who didn't flinch. Not when she tested him, not when she ignored him, not even when she tried to pull him in, only to push him away. He remained grounded, unbothered, still. That is the man she replays in her mind. He doesn't chase her approval. He doesn't mold himself to fit her mood. He doesn't apologize for his own existence. You see, most men lean in too quickly. They soften their voice. They smile too much. They try to guess what she wants to hear. They become performers, hoping for a reward, but she doesn't want a show. She wants truth, stillness, a man who knows who he is and doesn't ask for her confirmation. That is power, and it is quiet. Let me paint you a picture. You're at a cafe. She walks in, graceful, radiant. Every eye follows her as she sits nearby. Your heart might skip a beat, but your body does not. You remain present. No performance, no panic. She notices because she is used to the exact opposite. Men who orbit her like planets around the sun. But you are gravity. You are not just impressed by beauty. You admire character. That alone makes you unforgettable. A friend of mine, Mark, once told me this. He met a stunning woman at a seminar. She approached him first. Instead of jumping on the opportunity, he asked her a simple question. What brings you here? For real? It wasn't flirtation, just presence. Curiosity, without need. That single question cracked her open. They talked for hours. Weeks later, she told him, you were the only man in that room who didn't try to sell himself. That's it. That is the man who doesn't flinch. He doesn't react. He responds. He doesn't chase, but he doesn't run either. He stands his ground, and in his silence, she starts to feel loud. That is when the shift happens. She leans in. She rereads his texts. She starts wondering, why can't I stop thinking about him? Sign 2. The mirror. Have you ever met someone who looks at you, not as if they're judging, not as if they're analyzing, but as if they are simply seeing you? That is the mirror. He is the kind of man who doesn't perform. He doesn't brag. He doesn't try to earn points with clever stories or polished charm. Instead, he reflects. Most men perform for women. They talk about their careers, their workouts, their latest victories. It's as if they are pitching themselves, hoping she will approve. But the mirror doesn't pitch. He listens, truly listens. He doesn't interrupt her dreams with his own ambitions. He doesn't try to fix her pain with advice she never asked for. He feels no need to dominate the conversation. He simply creates space. And in that space, she breathes. She opens up. She softens. Because for once, she doesn't feel like she's being sold something. She feels safe, understood, seen. Let me give you an example a woman once shared with me. She was at a networking event after a long day, her feet aching in her heels. She was talking about a project that had kept her working for 17 hours straight. Most guys would have cut in. Oh, yeah? I run 3 companies. I barely sleep. But not this man. He just said, that sounds brutal. Is it truly worth it to you? No performance, just presence. No judgment, just curiosity. She told me later that his single question made her reflect on things she had been avoiding for years. It made her feel like he had actually heard her soul, not just her words. That is the power of the mirror. He is not trying to win. He is not trying to impress. He is not trying to solve. He simply reflects. And that reflection, honest, quiet, steady, is magnetic. Because here is the truth. In a world where women are constantly being pitched to, sold to, sized up, or seduced, the man who doesn't try to take anything from her becomes the one she leans into. Suddenly, she is texting him first. She is replaying their conversation. She is wondering what it is about him. It's not that he said the right thing. It's that he made her feel the rarest thing of all, safe. Sign 3. The storm in his calm. There is a kind of man who enters a room and you barely notice him at first. He is not loud. He is not flashy. He doesn't demand attention. And yet, somehow, she can't stop watching him. Why? Because there is something brewing beneath the surface. A storm contained. An intensity controlled. He is calm, but never soft. Still, but never empty. His eyes hold a little more tension. His words carry a little more weight. His silence speaks louder than most men's speeches. She doesn't know what it is, but she feels it. He doesn't over-explain, doesn't chase, and doesn't crumble under pressure. And that unsettles her, because most men either beg or break. But he stands. He doesn't resist her emotions. He allows her to feel them fully. And while she might spiral, he remains still. Not out of indifference, but from presence. One man. Few words. Unshaken. That is rare, and rare is irresistible. I knew someone like that. He wasn't rich, wasn't tall, wasn't even particularly handsome. But when he spoke, every man paused, and every woman listened. He never interrupted. He never shouted. He never felt the need to prove anything. But when things grew chaotic, he was the eye of the storm. And women, they noticed. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." And a saying from Lao Tzu fits even deeper. He who conquers others is strong. He who conquers himself is mighty. This man lives by that code. He has done the inner work. He has conquered himself. So when she steps into his world, it feels like silence, but a powerful silence. And in that silence, her own mind gets loud. Her heart races. She can't name it. She can't explain it, but she remembers it. And that is why she keeps coming back. Sign 4. The man who walks away. There is a strange kind of power in a man who isn't afraid to leave, not in anger, not to manipulate, but simply because he knows the cost of his own peace and what it is worth. He doesn't need to win an argument. He doesn't need to prove his value, and he certainly does not stay where he is not respected. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't throw insults. He just stands up, nods, and walks away. That silence, it echoes louder than any speech, and it drives her mad. Not because he was cruel, but because he didn't try to be needed. He didn't ask for approval. He didn't beg for another chance. He didn't hesitate. That is rare, and rare is unforgettable. You see, most men chase when they feel disrespected. They explain, they plead, they try to fix things that were broken from the start. But this man, he knows the path to self-respect, and he wears it like armor. There is a moment, and perhaps you have seen it before. A woman tests him. She pokes. She pushes just to see if he will stay. But he doesn't play the game. He just smiles and says, "This doesn't work for me." Then he disappears. Not with drama, but with clarity. And that stays with her, because every other man would have clung harder, fought louder, and lost his dignity in the process. But he kept his silence. And in that silence, she heard everything. A friend of mine, David, once told me a story. He was seeing a woman who kept texting other men, but called them just friends. Instead of arguing, he said, "You're free to do what you want, but I'm not the kind of man who waits around while someone decides if I'm enough." She laughed, thinking he was bluffing. He smiled and deleted her number. 2 weeks later, she reached out, apologizing, begging. But by then, he was already gone. That is what happens when a man values his energy more than he values attention. As Robert Greene wrote, the ability to walk away without looking back is a power few possess and all respect. And that kind of power doesn't shout. It doesn't chase. It doesn't flinch. It just walks, quiet, unapologetic, unmoved. And when she sees you are willing to walk away, not to punish her, but to protect your own peace, she stops testing. She starts wondering. She starts remembering. Because you didn't ask to be respected. You became a man who could not be disrespected. Sign 5. The man with presence. There is something unusual about a man who says nothing, yet somehow makes the entire room aware of him. Not because of what he wears, not because of what he says, but because of how he feels. It is not fake confidence. It is not loud energy. It is stillness, rooted, grounded. He doesn't chase attention. He doesn't compete for approval. He simply enters a room and owns his space within it. How? By being completely present. His eyes meet hers. He doesn't look away, but he doesn't stare. He doesn't need a pickup line. His presence is the line. He isn't trying to impress. He isn't trying to win. He is just there, aware, calm. And that is precisely what makes her nervous, because women are surrounded by men who are constantly trying to prove their worth. They talk too much. They move too fast. They reach too far. But this man is centered, and in that stillness, she feels seen. Not targeted, not tested, just seen. One woman described it perfectly. She was at a crowded party where every man was posturing, smiling, trying to catch her eye. But one man didn't even glance her way until, finally, their eyes met across the room. He held her gaze, not cocky, not creepy, just calm. Later, she approached him and said, "You looked like you didn't need anyone in this room, and that made me want to be the one you noticed." That is the paradox. He doesn't seek her, but his energy invites her. He doesn't act like he needs her, but somehow he makes her feel like the only person in the room. As the philosopher Epictetus said, when you possess peace within you, you draw others into your stillness. That is the man with presence. He doesn't enter a room to take up space. He enters to own his space. And that subtle difference is everything. She leaves that room still thinking about him, not because of anything he said, but because of how he made her feel without a single word. Sign 6. The man who turns his pain into power. There is a strength most men overlook, and yet women can sense it instantly. It is not bravado. It is not the tough guy who never cries. That is a performance, a hollow shell. Real strength comes from the man who has been shattered and has chosen to rebuild himself, not into a harder version of himself, but into a deeper one. He doesn't hide his scars. He wears them, not as symbols of weakness, but as proof that he survived. You can feel it in his calm. It is not practiced, it is earned. He has walked through fire and brought back silence. And that silence speaks volumes. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This man, he has faced his unconscious. He didn't run from his pain. He sat with it. He understood it. He transformed it. And women, they feel it before he even says a word, because he doesn't get triggered easily. He doesn't flinch at rejection. He doesn't play games. He listens. He observes. He responds. He never reacts. One man I knew had lost everything: his career, his marriage, his sense of purpose. He could have drowned in it, but instead, he studied, he healed, he traveled alone. And when he returned, he did not wear bitterness. He wore stillness. Women noticed. They would tell him, "You feel like someone who can hold me without needing to fix me." Because the man who can hold himself can hold others too. His pain became his power. His loss became his leadership. He didn't bury the past. He built on top of it. So, if you have been broken, do not pretend it didn't happen. Do not harden. Learn. Own it. Grow stronger because of it. Because the man who walks with emotional weight yet radiates a quiet wisdom doesn't just attract women, he awakens them. And that is the man 99% of women can never forget. Not because of what he says, but because of who he has become. You made it here, to the very end, and that alone places you in a different category. Most men don't finish. They click away, they chase shortcuts, they look for tricks, but not you. You stayed, you listened, you saw beyond the surface, and that says something about the kind of man you are becoming, because you are not here merely to attract. You are here to understand, to elevate, to evolve, to master the energy inside you so deeply that women don't just notice you, they feel you. And not because of some magic line or a clever game, but because of your presence.